Hey everyone, Kevin Newsom coming to you from Houston, Texas, wishing you well on this late November day. We are at the very end of November and still have no clear-cut winner for the 2020 presidential election. Now, news organizations such as the Associated Press and CNN and MSNBC and Fox have projected who they believe to be the winner, but we still have no official word as of yet. Of course, in the United States, press organizations do not determine the winner of elections. And when it comes to presidential elections, only the Electoral College can make that determination. And until that happens, everything is just a projection. Understanding that, a lot of curious things have begun happening across the country. On November 18th, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey refused to certify any election results until all court cases regarding election fraud are settled. And in case you're wondering, there are a lot of court cases being heard about election fraud. Probably the biggest two right off the bat are the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers the state of Pennsylvania, which will hear evidence of voter fraud in the coming days. Also, on December 3rd, the First District Court of Nevada will also hear potential evidence of voter fraud within the state of Nevada. Curiously enough, the Pennsylvania State Legislature held hearings on November the 25th concerning voter fraud. The legislature of Arizona will do the same on November 30th, and the state of Michigan's legislature will hold hearings on voter fraud on December the 1st. So there is a lot of action already happening, both at the state level and now in the federal courts, concerning the issue of election fraud. Now, if you listen to the corporate media, they are saying, well, there's just no evidence. This is a big joke. We have someone who just won't accept reality. He lost. He needs to move on. This is a big nothing burger. I find that very interesting stance that the corporate media is taking when they automatically dismiss claims of voter fraud. And to me, this is interesting for a number of reasons. First off, we have key figures who have gone on record saying, yes, there is voter fraud. Yes, there are serious problems with our voting system. The first of these key figures would be the chairman of the Federal Elections Commission, Trey Traynor. Mr. Traynor has gone on record saying that, yes, there has been significant voter fraud and fraudulent activity in this presidential election. And he cited the fact that several observers for various elections across the country were simply not allowed into the polling places. And this is a very serious issue because fair and free elections, at least in the United States, require observers from both the Democratic and Republican side of the aisle. And the FEC chairman made some pretty serious allegations that many of these observers were simply barred from entering polling locations. Another key player that has largely been marginalized by our corporate media is the former state of Oregon elections director, Stephen Trout. Mr. Trout, on November the 2nd, which was the day before the election, sent out a public letter warning that the state of Oregon's election system, its computer system, was outdated and, quite honestly, not secure at all. Mr. Trout revealed that the state of Oregon received several $1 million from the U.S. government to update its electronic voting system, but refused to do so. And he went on to say that the state of Oregon is still using 2008 Microsoft Windows products, and those can't even be updated anymore by Microsoft. And as a result of making this statement, Mr. Trout was fired by the Secretary of State for the state of Oregon. Now, none of his claims were disputed. He was just fired. So we have this rather incredible set of circumstances happening in America right now. All of these events concerning the 2020 election and possible election fraud are beginning to brew and boil at the state level across the United States. And some of this has already begun to simmer up into the federal courts. Yet our legacy media still says there's nothing happening here. Show's over, folks. Move on. Nothing to see here. And I was trying to think of a parallel to what's going on right now anywhere else in the world. And the first thing that came to mind was the former Iraqi media minister, Mohammed Saeed al-Sahaf, who was known as Baghdad Bob during the Iraq War in 2003. And if you're too young to remember this or just weren't paying attention during the Iraq War, Baghdad Bob would routinely make announcements on Iraqi TV and to the press that during the war that American soldiers were surrendering to Iraqi soldiers, that American soldiers were committing suicide by the thousands, and that no American soldiers were anywhere near the presidential palace in Baghdad. And one of the rumors was that you could actually see American tanks in the background of one of his speeches. And the American forces rolling into town as he's still saying, no, nothing to see here. Show's over. We're all good. How are you? And this is kind of what the legacy media reminds me of. They remind me of Baghdad Bob, because we have a serious constitutional issue going on right now. We've got serious claims being made in state legislatures, state courts, and now federal courts across the country. And these claims deserve to be investigated. And to just sit there and say, oh, no, nothing's going on, no evidence, nothing's happening, let's just ignore this, is really Baghdad Bob behavior, to be quite honest. But what really seals it for me concerning the corporate media, and that's ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, all of them, is the fact that we, for the past 4 or 5 years, have been hammered by this same media with the story of Russian hackers, Russian interference in elections, Russian hackers changing votes, sneaking into voting booths, hijacking vulnerable U.S. voting software, vulnerable state voting software systems, easily hacked by Russia or other enemy foreign governments. Fast forward to 2020, and the idea of hacking into election systems or foreign government interference is now ludicrous, per the corporate media. Of course, there's been no explanation of how such a fragile, vulnerable system of elections in all 50 states, very fragile, vulnerable, easily hacked computer software from all 50 states, was suddenly made completely infallible 4 years later. And that, my friends, is the dead giveaway that these imbeciles, and they are that, complete imbeciles, are full of crap. Now, was there election fraud to the degree that the President of the United States claims? I don't know. But those claims are serious enough to bear serious investigation and not outright dismissal, especially from organizations that have been claiming for the past 4 years of massive voter fraud and foreign interference in our elections. This is Kevin Newsom coming to you from Houston, Texas, wishing you well on this late November day. God bless. Bye.